Hi everyone, I hope you had a great weekend. I just wanted to kind of show you the rest of the Book Buddy schedule. Remember, this is posted on the stream and you do have a copy of it in your folder. But for this week, first, second, and sixth hour, we are reading chapters 15, 16, and 17. And then the other, the third and fourth hour are 2 weeks behind, so they're reading chapters 10 and 11. But here we go. Last thing we heard in chapter 14 was about Mookie. So the guy that was the homeless guy that was at the abandoned house where Georgina has Willie. So we kind of see what happens. But she kind of went back to the car. She hadn't told Toby about it. And she's just, trying to go to bed and worry about it the next day. So here we go, chapter 15. Okay, now listen, Toby. I told him I took him by the shoulders and looked him straight in the eye. Then I gave him a little shake just to make sure I had his attention. There might be a man back there with Willie. I jerked my head in the direction of the old house. Toby's eyes got wide. Who? He said. A man named Mookie. A man named Mookie? I nodded. But it's okay, I said. He's nice. He gave Willie some sardines. What's he doing back there? I shrugged. Just like kinda living there, I guess. Toby glanced nervously at the house. How'd he get in? Not inside, I said. He's living outside, out in the back where Willie is. You mean like a bum? I kept my hands on Toby's shoulders and made him face me so he'd pay attention. Look, Toby, I said. He's liable to be gone, but just in case he's there, don't be scared, okay? Okay. I dropped my hands from Toby's shoulders and started toward the house. Hey, wait a minute, Toby said, grabbing the back of my t-shirt. How do you know about the man named Mookie? He stomped his foot on the ground. You came here without me. I had to, I said. When? Yesterday. Yesterday. I put my arm around him and gave him a little jiggle. Look, Toby, I just did it without thinking, 'cause I needed to see Willie. I'm sorry, okay? Toby looked down at his feet. I jiggled him again. Okay, I said. Finally, in a little tiny voice, he said, okay. I won't do it ever again. Pinky promise? He said. I crooked my little pinky at him. Pinky promise. We linked pinkies, then headed toward the house. I sure hoped Mookie was gone. We hadn't even got to the corner of the house before Willie started barking. It's me, I called out. Georgina. And Toby, Toby called from behind me. When I rounded the corner, the first thing I saw was that blue tarp. Underneath it, Mookie was stretched out on top of his sleeping bag, his hands folded on his stomach and his hat over his face. From over on the back steps, Willie wiggled his whole body and let out a bark like he was saying hello. Mookie didn't move. Mookie, I said in kind of soft like so I wouldn't scare him. Nothing. Mookie, I said a little louder. Still nothing. Is he dead? Toby whispered. Suddenly Mookie let out a snort and jumped, sending his hat flying and making me and Toby grab each other. Mookie slapped a hand over his heart and flopped back down on a sleeping bag. You like to scare the Bessie bug out of me? He said. I brought Willie some stuff to eat, I said, wagging my paper bag in the air. Mookie sat up and put his hat on. Me and him's been having liver pudding. I wrinkled my nose. What's that? Liver pudding? Mookie rubbed his hand in a circle on his stomach. Some good eatin', that's what. Right, Willie? Willie sat on the porch steps and lifted a paw. Mookie chuckled. That dog's got good taste. He nodded toward Toby. Who's he? My brother, Toby. Mookie got up and held out his 3-fingered hand toward Toby. I'd forgotten to warn Toby about that, but for once in his life he didn't act like a scaredy baby. He shook Mookie's hand like he didn't even notice those missing fingers. It's a dern shame, all that landlord of yours, ain't it? Mookie said to Toby. Toby looked at me and then back to Mookie. Yes, sir, it is. I felt relief flood over me. Toby wasn't going to say something stupid like he usually did. I bet y'all sure do miss your little dog, don't you? Mookie said. We sure do, I said. Toby nodded. Yes, sir, we do. Mookie rolled his sleeping bag up and stuffed it into the crate on the back of his bicycle. Kinda hard to sleep around him, though, ain't it? I looked over at Willie. He looked back at me with his shiny little eyes and his eyebrows lifted up like he was curious as anything to hear what I was going to say. I shrugged. Sometimes, I said. Mookie wiped a plastic coffee mug with his shirt tail and put it into a burlap bag. He snored like that all the time? He said, not all the time. Mookie chuckled and put a few more things inside his burlap bag. Then he tucked it into the crate beside the sleeping bag. Are you leaving? I said. I sure hoped he was. Yep. Good, I thought. Now I could concentrate on what I had to do. Mookie pushed his bike toward the path leading out to the road. What about that? I said, pointing up at the blue tarp. Oh, I'll be back, he said. Me and Toby watched him disappear around the corner of the house. A few seconds later, the sound of gravelly singing echoed through the woods and faded away. Is he a bum? Toby said. I don't know. I sat on the step beside Willie and let him root around inside the paper bag. He pulled out a chunk of bagel and gobbled it down. I bet he is, Toby said. I stroked Willie's head while he ate the rest of the scraps I brought him, except a slice of tomato. He just sniffed that. Don't you think he's a bum? Toby said. How should I know? I snapped. I don't like him, Toby said. He smells. So do you, I hollered, making Willie jump off my lap and slink away like I just smacked him upside the head. So do you, Toby hollered back. Why was I being so mean to Toby? Maybe I figured if I was mean to Toby, he'd feel better about things, but I didn't. Let's go take Willie for a walk, I said. The next day, Mama made Toby stay at the coffee shop and do his homework over in the corner booth by the kitchen. He had whined and carried on, but it hadn't done him a bit of good. So now I was finally free to be by myself and figure things out. First, I had to visit Carmela and find out if she had gotten any money from her sister, Gertie. I hurried up the sidewalk toward Whitmer Road. It seemed like the world had blossomed overnight. Bright pink azaleas, white dogwood, the air smelled sweet, like clover. I had the urge to take my shoes off and run barefoot across the soft green lawns, but I didn't. When I got to Carmela's, I waited outside the gate. The yard was quiet, not even any birds at the feeder. For a minute, I wished I could step back in time, back to the day when Willie had come running around the side of the house, chasing that squirrel. Before I had done what I had done, but I couldn't, so I made my feet go up on the porch and my hand knock on the screen door. Who is it? Carmela called from inside. It's me, Georgina. I heard her wheezy breathing as she came to unlatch the screen. Hey, I said. Hey. I looked down at the floor and said, Did anybody find Willie? Carmela shook her head and sank into her ratty old chair. The TV was on with no sound. One of those shopping shows where some lady tries to get you to buy a great big ring that's not even a real diamond. The lady wiggled her finger around, making the fake diamond sparkle for the camera. What about Gertie? I said. Carmela shook her head again. What am I going to do? She said in this flat kind of voice that made me feel sort of scared. I sat on the ottoman across from her. What did Gertie say? She says she hasn't got the money, but I knew good and well she does. Carmela wiped her nose with her hand and stared at the TV. She says I'm pathetic for getting all worked up over a dog. So what are you going to do? I'm thinking I'll just go ahead and offer what I can. How much is that? Carmela sighed. Oh, I don't know, $50 maybe? My stomach went thunk. But you put $500 on all those signs, I said. I know. Carmela blew her nose. Maybe whoever finds Willie won't care about money. She stuffed the tissue in her pocket. I sure wouldn't, she said. Would you? I shrugged. Well, sort of. I mean, not really, but with every word that came out of my mouth, I felt like I was digging myself into a hole, and if I didn't stop, I was going to be so far in I wouldn't ever climb out. Me and Carmela stared at the TV in silence. Now that lady was dangling a shiny gold necklace in front of the camera. Her bright red lips were moving, and I tried to imagine what she was saying, but my mind was such a mixed up mess that instead of imagining her saying how wonderful that necklace was, I heard her saying, Georgina Hayes, what in the world are you doing? Have you lost your mind? You bring that little dog back here this instant. I looked at Carmela and felt a stab. What in the world was I doing? Then suddenly Carmela leaned forward and said, Will you do me a favor? Sure. Will you and Toby go check those woods over there across the highway? What woods? Over yonder. She waved her arm toward the main highway, toward the gravel road, toward the old house. You'll probably think I'm plumb crazy, she said, but sometimes I think I hear Willie barking from over there. Thunk. There went my stomach again. Really? I said. I drove around over I drove around over that way yesterday, she said, but I thought maybe you and Toby could look too. Okay. Course, I think I hear Willie scampering around this house too, Carmela said, so I reckon it's just my crazy old mind playing tricks on me. Toby's doing homework at my mama's coffee shop, I said, but I'll go look. Carmela smiled. I sure do appreciate everything y'all have done for me. I shrugged. That's okay. I started for the door. Besides, maybe if we do find Willie, Gertie will change her mind and give us $500. Carmela's smile dropped, and she looked like I just told her the sky had turned purple. What do you mean? She said. Well, I mean, you know, the reward and all. Oh, Carmela looked down at her hands and twisted a button on her shirt. I guess I thought you and Toby were helping me because you wanted to. We are, I said. I mean, we do want to. I just thought, but I will certainly do my best to make sure you get paid for your kindness. Carmela's chin was puckering up and she wouldn't look at me. Darn, I thought. That hole I dug myself into was getting deeper by the minute. And that is the end of chapter 15. Bye, guys. Have a great day.